Hey, podcast listeners, Ria Wong with you once again with Nonprofit Lowdown. So, today is a special bonus episode with my dear friend Jess Campbell, founder and president of Out in the Boons. We are talking about end of year email campaigns and what do you do when things don't go quite the way that you want it to go. So, Jess,
Yeah.
welcome to the show. I think we do this every
Yes.
year, right? Around this time.
Thank you for having me back. You're
We
such
love
a
that.
pro. You're such a pro
Oh,
at all this podcast stuff.
oh my gosh. Well, thank you. You're like a three-time guest, though.
Oh, it's fun to be back. I love your audience and I love chatting with you because you get it. So it's like riffing with like your best pal on your best, most favorite topic.
Totally. Okay, so for people who don't know you, which also like, come on, how do you not know the one and only Jess Campbell? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey in the nonprofit world. What is this never-ending story that you've been on?
Yeah. I mean, I, like a lot of people listening, spent decades in the nonprofit sector raising money. I say I've raised money at startups, itty bitty, teeny winny. I was first paid employee type shops to like Human Rights Watch in New York, which raises hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And totally had my world flipped once I had my child. I really did think I was going to be one of those people that was like, oh, and I can't wait to get rid of this kid, like send them off to daycare. And I had the opposite reaction. So I had to make a pivot and a pivot quickly. My baby is now 7. So I've been running Out in the Boons for a while now. And the name spun out of a conversation I was having with a longtime executive director who had been at his job for like 15 years. And when I was consulting with him, he was asking me like fundraising 101 questions, well, how do I treat them like making friends? And how do I go up to them at the gala? Or how many more days until I follow up with them? And I was like, holy smokes, no one has taught this man anything. And in that moment, I remember having like a feeling, like a physical feeling in my chest of, oh my gosh, this person is just all on their own. They're out in the woods. They're out in the boonies by themselves. And just, I never wanted a fundraiser to feel like that. So the name of my company is Out in the Boons. It's because I don't want anyone feeling like they have nowhere to go, nowhere to turn, nowhere to learn. And in the evolution of my business, I've just really doubled down on all things email. I think email is your most powerful marketing channel. I will die on that hill. Ria knows this. I am like steadfast. And that's what I help people do now is raise money and find donors in their email lists.
I love that so much. And you and I have talked about this, like same. I started my thing, 301 Consulting and the fundraising accelerator because I, like you, Googled. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me Google it. And it's terrible. It feels
Thank God
terrible to
for
kind of be
Google.
out, right? Like I was Google University. Like, how do you fundraise? Um, so yes, I love all of the things. Let's talk about email. So I'm
Yes.
out here and I'm like, Jess, email is dead, right?
Oh my
Here we
gosh.
are. We're
Yeah.
being told to be on social media, do like dances on TikTok, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. Why have you doubled down on email? Make the case for me.
I have doubled down on email because it works. So this is for me, this is for my clients. I spent the better part of 3 years working my ass off on social media and being so incredibly burned out and tired that I mean, I couldn't even look straight. And it was when I started focusing on email that the numbers just don't lie. Statistically, email outperforms social 39-1. Email is something that you have control over. People are opting in. I always talk about social media. It's like a drive-by situation where in your inbox, people have invited you in. So it's going to be a way different type of behavior people use when they're interacting versus just what they catch as they're doing the swipe of the thumb. Um, Also, social, you just have no control. And in the aftermath of pandemic online behavior, social media companies from LinkedIn to TikTok to Twitter to Instagram to Facebook are just messing with that algorithm. And whether it's a day where the thing just shuts down to like the day where they decide to show your content to less than 0.5% of your audience, you just have no control over that. And your email list is a whole different ballgame. You own that. If those things go away tomorrow, you still have your email list. And the last thing I'll say is I want you, the listener, to like think of how you behave on email versus social. So you might catch something really entertaining on TikTok. Guilty. Like I am definitely guilty of the scroll. But I save my to-do list, my task list for email. So I'm not making donations as I'm swiping my thumb, as I'm getting that dopamine hit on Instagram, but I have a folder that I star with the things I need to do. And that's an email. And so if you think about that, where are you wanting to put your resources? Is it on the side of things that you A can't control, where B people are thumb swiping through, or in the bucket of where people are actually doing stuff, where they're actually creating a task list, a to-do list? I'm going to pick email every day of the week.
So just to play devil's advocate for a second,
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, let's say I'm running a small nonprofit.
Yeah.
I only have so many hours in the day. Are you saying that if I have X percent of hours in the day, I should be focused, what, 80, 90, 100% on email versus social? What percentage
Yes.
are we talking here?
Yes. So I love that you've asked me this question because this took me a minute to actually come to terms with. So, like I said, for the better part of the last 3 years, I've been going hard on social. I'm talking like post to stories every day, 5 posts a week on multiple channels. Like, oh my gosh, the amount of content I've produced on social. And I was feeling really guilty about it. Like really guilty. And I don't remember if it was you or someone else that's in our peer mastermind that was like, well, you're not doing it. Why don't you just give yourself permission to not do it and see what happens? And I have probably reduced the amount of content I've put out in 2023 by 80%. I'm just tired. I'm too tired. And I've committed to email. So come hell or high water, you will get an email in your inbox from me, where you might not see me on social, at least like posting content. And so, yeah, I would say that if you're having to choose up, down, left, right, yes, no, is it social? Is it email? I'm going to tell you to pick email every single day of the week. If you're like, well, I can dedicate 70% to email, 30% to social, knock yourself out. You will see the results in email every single time over social. I guarantee it. So yeah, I'm actually moving towards the stance of social optional for
Wow.
nonprofits.
Bold, bold, bold. Wait, and talk to us about an experiment that you ran. You did a launch and you did it fully on email, not at all on social. And did you
Yeah.
see what did the revenue numbers say?
Yeah. I mean, if you all are listening to this and you are on Ria's email list, you probably saw we just ran a Black Friday sale, a ginormous collaborative. I posted one time on social, but I sent 9 emails and we had almost 300 people purchase that item. I do it all the time. I mean, like I said, this year I've really dropped the amount of social, especially social posts that involve selling, which can be compared to social posts asking for donations. I've essentially stopped doing them because they don't work, and I reserve all of my selling for email.
Bold. Well, the other thing that I will say too, if we look at the younger generation, they are actually against social, or they're on social way less than, say, millennials are. So I think
Right.
it's an interesting evolution in the world of social. And I think increasingly there are legitimate concerns about these large social media companies and selling our attention spans, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a bold statement. I'm into it. But let's transition a little bit. So I think the concern a lot of people have about using email for things like, campaigns or sales is, oh my God, I don't want to send too many.
Oh my
They're
gosh,
going
I
to
hear this all the time.
unsubscribe or
Yeah.
they're going to be annoyed or whatever it is. What would you respond to that? Is there such a thing as too many emails?
I mean, in my world, no, because I like email, but I also think that it's really difficult to go from like 0 to 150 in one campaign. So, for example, if you're an organization and you come to me and you're like, I want help with email, and I'm like, great, when was the last email you sent? And you're like, April. I'm not going to suggest that you send, like 14 emails in the next 7 days. That would be obnoxious. If you have been sending consistent, valuable emails regularly to your list, then you have a little bit more wiggle room to increase that cadence fast. So you have to take an inner look at what you've been doing. And I would say slowly turn the dial up. In general, I almost never have an organization come to me that is emailing their list enough. And by enough, I would say at a minimum of once a week. Um, so that's if you're doing that and doing that more than that, like hats off to you, you're doing a great job. If you're not doing that, I would work to make that your cadence, because it becomes tricky when you're only sending an email a month or an email every couple weeks, and then it's campaign season and you're trying to put like 3 emails in folks' inbox on Giving Tuesday and they're like, wait, who is this again? And like, I don't recognize you. I always use the analogy of like Bed Bath and Beyond or Target. Like those people are in my inbox every single day. Do I ever unsubscribe? No, because like who knows? I might need that 20% off coupon or something. Like I'm so familiar with them. They're like my friend now that they don't bother me. And so that's why when they run a sale and they're sending like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 emails in a day, it's like no big deal. I'm just so used to it. Versus I'll get other companies and I'm like, wait, who is this? Like, I don't recognize you at all. Unsubscribe because you just bought my name off a list is actually my first assumption. And so I would say no, actually, the data says that on Giving Tuesday, folks who emailed more than once, and specifically folks who sent emails after 5 p.m., performed better. Most donors actually gave a late in the day donation. So if you're over here stating like, oh, I can't send 2 emails on Giving Tuesday, sorry, Charlie, you missed out, because those are the people that actually won the game. And I think that as you look forward to the next couple weeks, I would be sending at least 1 email a week through the month of December, with an increase of emails the last 3 days of the month, with the increase on the last day of the year. And I am even encouraging people to send an email on like January 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, just to get those last scragglers who just, can never get enough reminders.
I love that. Okay, you said something that I think is really important that cannot be underscored strongly enough. Valuable emails. So I
Yes.
find that the mistake that a lot of nonprofits make, and I'm sure you see this as well, is that they send emails that are valuable to them as an organization because they're asking for money or they're talking about themselves. But how do we think about value for our readers? What does that
Mhm.
look like?
Yeah. Okay. This is so difficult for nonprofits, and I haven't unearthed why. I think it comes from a place of scarcity, but I'm always butting up against nonprofits who want to sing their praises, talk only about themselves, how good of a job they're doing. I see so many organizations that are very reluctant to have any tension in their storytelling. And I want to be super clear, like tension does not equal being pervasive in your storytelling. We're not trying to like tell the story of someone's deepest and darkest traumas and like that's not what I'm talking about, but you do need tension in your storytelling, and you also need to have a compelling reason for people to give. So if you're over here like, and we did this and we're this great and we're the best and we never have any problems, why would everyone feel like they need to help you out? Like that is so weird to me. And nonprofits do it constantly, and it honestly gives me a bit of a migraine. And so when I talk about valuable emails, I want you to really think about the person on the other side of that email who's reading it. So are you entertaining them? Are you telling them a story that's either going to make them feel good, laugh, smile, feel related to? Can you provide some information or education? So is that you can share a recipe, or maybe you're a kids museum and you've got 12 ways to hide your elf on a shelf, or maybe you are a food rescue organization and you have some new recipe. Like, I want you to be generous in your email the way that you, the reader, would be like, I'm sure everyone listening actually has this. I'm sure that there are a couple people you get emails from that you look forward to, that you save, you covet. Maybe you like are me and you save Saturday mornings with your hot cup of black tea and you sit on your big chair and you read them all. There's probably people like that, and I want you to work to become one of those emails that like people read because they get something from it.
Yeah, and I also just want to underscore this point too about having a specific voice and a specific point of view. I mean, we've interviewed Mitch on this podcast and he talks about being pink sherbet, right? In the
That's
nonprofit
so
world,
good for Mitch. Yeah.
right? Like we're all so afraid of offending that we're all vanilla. Well, here's the thing, vanilla doesn't offend, but it like doesn't really excite either. So
Oh, it's like
pink,
beige. It's like I
yeah,
was thinking about that today. Beige. Ugh.
that beige, like I've never walked into a room and I thought, wow, this
Hmm.
beige is really audacious. Like this beige,
Oh,
this beige is really making a statement.
yeah. Never,
Yeah.
never, never once.
And I just think about the fact that, good marketing attracts, great marketing repels. And you have to be willing
Mm.
to repel people who are not your people. It's okay.
Totally. Yes. And don't be afraid of those unsubscribes. I mean, honestly, they are doing you such a favor. Like, really, if I was to be forced to choose between an unsubscribe and someone just sitting dead on my email list for months and months, I'd rather them just unsubscribe
Yeah.
because they're pulling your open rates and all of your data down, down, down. And the number of email subscribers you have on your list is honestly just a vanity number.
Yeah.
Like, you can do amazing fundraising with very small lists. And it's more important that they're opening and clicking and replying.
I love a dating analogy. It's like that guy that always like hits you up, but is never actually going to ask you out. You know what I mean?
Ugh,
Like,
go away. Just leave.
like, what are we doing here? Like, are we doing this or are we not doing this? Like, why are you blowing up my DMs?
Yeah, just leave.
Just go. Like, yeah, just like, this is not going to happen. That's fine. Okay, wait. So let's talk about the big question. So all of us on the listening, I'm sure, have thought about campaigns, gotten really excited, planned out the whole thing,
Yeah.
written out the emails, blah, blah, blah. And we send them out and we're getting maybe not crickets, but we're not getting what we thought we should be getting. So, a
Yeah.
couple of questions here. Number one, how do you set goals for the next year, knowing
Mm,
that hopefully throughout the year you've been emailing your list, et cetera, et cetera. So that's question one. How do you set realistic but ambitious goals for a campaign?
mm. So you said something important because it really does matter, the pre-work. I'm like a crazy person around the pre-work in the campaign. Like, basically that's the work, and then you send some emails. So there are two buckets. Like, if you haven't done the pre-work, you're going to have more of an uphill climb, and if you have done the pre-work, it should be more smooth sailing. But specifically, how do you set your goal? I think it's important to data set from the previous year, right? So if you raised $10 last year and you're trying to raise $100,000 this year, like, what? Like, where's that money coming from? I'm a really big proponent of pre-raising 25 to 50% of your campaign before launch day. So if you haven't met that threshold, you might want to adjust your public facing goal, because you're working with a finite amount of time. And if you haven't secured some pledges, that might be a bit ambitious. And then year to year, I think you have to really decide. So I have some organizations that keep it modest. They're like, we're just trying to raise a little bit more or do what we did last year. I have some other clients that like this is their 10-year or 25-year anniversary. And so they are going big and they have a really compelling ask. Other clients are trying to achieve something very, very, very specific that requires a very specific amount of money. And so they are calling on people to help them achieve that financial goal to be able to achieve the impact they're trying to make on the world. And so I think it's not as simple as like, well, do what you did last year and increase it by 10%. Like you could do it that way, but I would actually circle it around what will this money do? What will this money achieve? And I think the more specific you can get, like our goal is to raise $43,000. Like make it $43,000, instead of 50 or instead of 40. And yeah, that's how I would assess it. So it's a little bit of history combing. It's a little bit of how much you pre-raise. It's a little bit based on what it is this money will do in the world.
And let's also talk about other metrics too, because obviously there's a monetary goal of,
Yes.
it is a fundraising campaign. And what other things can we think about, like new donors,
Yes. Retained donors,
Mhm.
monthly donors, number of donors. How do we feel? Like, are we stressed out and burned out, or are we cool, calm, and collected? Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do.
And how long would you recommend for the length of a campaign? Because I also know that people feel like if it's too long, they get burnt out. They're sending out the same thing. People don't want to hear from them. But if it's too short, they don't have enough time to actually build the momentum that they need. And then statistically, we also know that people tend to come in at the tail end of a campaign. So how
Yes.
long do you have an optimal length of time for a campaign?
Yes. So for end of year campaign season, I really do recommend campaigning from, let's call it Giving Tuesday through the end of the year. And that might feel very long because that is like roughly 4 or 5 weeks. But the truth is people give all December long. They really do. And so I recommend a cadence of kind of a lot of emails surrounding Giving Tuesday or leading up to Giving Tuesday, then an email a week through the rest of December, with then turning up that dial the last week of the year. So probably an email every day, the last 3 days of the year, with like 2 or 3 emails on December 31st. For a campaign that's not end of year giving season, a lot of my clients do like 7 to 10 day campaigns, like kind of fast and punchy. I know in January, I encourage all of my students and clients to try to convert folks who've made a gift of $500 or less into monthly donors in January. These are people that just gave to you. They are hot and they statistically do not retain very well. So they're the best people to try and convert from that one-time donor who might lapse next year into recurring giving. So that would be anywhere from like 4 to 6 emails in January. And you can decide over how many days. I would keep it pretty short. So really, I know nothing. I wish there's no black or white simple answers here. Unfortunately, everyone is unique.
Right, right. But what I'm hearing is it does have to be time stamped. Like there's
Yes.
a set amount of time to create some urgency.
Yes. Donors love an end goal, an end date, a completion.
Right.
We just love that as humans. So I would mark a line in the sand.
Okay, let's talk about what happens when a campaign does not go the way that you wanted to go. So let's just say
I know.
fictional. If you're
Yeah.
listening to this, maybe this is
The
you, maybe it's
you.
not you. You have a whole campaign, you went out on Giving Tuesday, it didn't do what you thought it should do, or at least the goals, either monetarily or in terms of your donor response rate. And I also know that there's like this tendency to be like, well, it's the economy. Like people
Mm,
are responding to the economy, but the truth is like there's a lot of money out there. And the
yes.
economy, we know that people give even in tough economic times. So how do we salvage this? Like
Yeah.
when this publishes, we're in the first week of December. We're still in the game. We're in like the
Oh my gosh,
last,
there's so much time.
so much
Yes.
time in the game, right? Like we're in the final quarter. I'm like thinking
Not
football.
even. I would say like it's not even halftime yet. Like we got time. We've got time, people. Like
Okay,
deep
what do
breath
we
in,
do,
deep breath
Jess?
out.
Okay,
Yes, yes. Okay,
help
so I have
me.
5 things. I have
5
five
things,
things
great.
and this came up because I was over the weekend really knocking my head against the wall like what would I do if my campaign was underperforming or not performing? Like what would I do if I was a director of development trying to figure this out? The first thing I would do is look at your data. So how did your emails perform on Giving Tuesday? Was the open rate, the click rate, either it doesn't need to be astronomically amazing because it was a very competitive giving day, but if it's really, really, really low, I would take a serious look at your subject lines. Are they compelling? Are they curiosity inducing? Do they have an emojis? Preferably at the very front. Are they capturing people's attention in their inbox? I would take a real hard look at that. I have a template membership and I put an email template in there called the shortest email template ever. And the subject line of that email was this email only has 41 words or this email only has 28 words. This email, you guys, performs chef's kiss every single time because people are always like, what are these 28 words? And inside the email is like, please make your donation today. Like it's nothing
Yeah. Wait, but
crazy.
can we back up for a second?
Yeah.
What kind of numbers are we talking about here? Because you said if I look at my open rates or if I look at my click through rates, like what's my
What
benchmark?
are those? Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we can link this in the show notes because Neon One actually has a really fantastic email report that they did earlier this year, and they have a specific Giving Tuesday report. And it assesses organizations based on your list size. So is it a small list, which they consider under 1,000, or a big list, which they consider above 1,000? I think the average across all nonprofits is like a 29% open rate. And I want to say it's 2.3 click-through rate, but those numbers might be off a little bit. And really, it depends if you're a small or large organization. I would say on Giving Tuesday, your numbers might be lower than that just because, I mean, I don't know about you, Ria, but I had like 108 emails in my inbox asking me for Giving Tuesday donations. So it's not like an apples to apples comparison compared to like a regular Tuesday. But I would say those are kind of baseline parameters. So like around 30% open rate, around 2% click rate is anything above that you should be feeling good.
Okay. Well, and I think you said something really interesting because I think our tendency is to look at the open rate, but actually the click-through rate is probably a better indicator of engagement, is it not?
Yes, especially with the wonderful update, the iOS update of 2022, 2021. I can't even remember at this point. It basically falsifies open rates, and not to get into like a huge explanation, but if a person has an iPhone and they have the email icon on their phone, like on mine, one of my bottom four is that like envelope looking icon, that counts as an open whether or not you open that email. So your email rates are probably higher, they're reporting higher than they actually are, which is why your click-through rate is a much more accurate indicator of engagement as well as replies. I'm a big fan of asking people to hit reply and then them actually replying to your email. That's another good one if people are replying.
Okay. So let's get back to it. So look at
Yes.
our rates. If it's below
Yes.
30% and below 2% click through, we should probably look at our subject lines.
Yeah.
What's the second thing we can do?
The other thing I want you to do is assess the sender. So, are you sending it from an organization? Are you sending it from a person that people really recognize? I have a blog post going out where I screenshot an email I got today from Scott Harrison, the CEO of Charity Water. But the way it came through my inbox looked like he was sending me an email. And I was like, I'm going to open this. And of course it was an appeal. But it was from Scott Harrison, not Scott Harrison Charity Water. Like it looked like it was from him. But maybe, so you need to assess who's the most recognizable person at your organization. Is that the CEO and founder versus the director of development versus maybe a program staff member? I would assess that because it might just be getting missed because people are like, I don't know who this is, when really they do, they just don't recognize the sender.
Yeah. Well, and I also just want to double click on this. Like anybody who has an email address that's like, you know, director at whatever org or executive at whatever, like that's not a real person to me. That should be
Yeah.
changed immediately.
Yes. Yes, for sure. For sure. Okay.
Okay. Number 3. What do we
Okay.
do to salvage the situation?
Yes. Okay. So I talked about it a teeny tiny bit, but nonprofits are historically really, really, really bad at retaining donors, especially donors who give $100 or less. The retention rate is like 18%. I think the average across all donations is 46%, which essentially means that for every donor you gain, you will lose more than one, which is just like such a bummer. And so I suggest sending a version of a "We Miss You" email. I just wrote a template like this in my template shop. It's for you to send to people who are either lapsed donors or who are on the verge of lapsing. And what I want you to do in this email is send it through like a mail merge situation. So if you use Gmail or Outlook, you can mail merge. I want it to specifically recognize their first name and their last gift amount. And this is important because we want our donor to feel like we see them, that this is customized and personalized, and then we want to wrap it in to the impact that gift was able to make. And so if you're kind of like, I don't know what I would write in this email, like I said, I have a template shop that does this for you. It's very fill in the blank style, but it's refocusing on the people who have already raised their hand to you and said, I like you. I think you're doing good work, versus spending all of our energy just trying to go attract a brand new donor. That's going to be way more expensive and way harder to do versus just recapturing the people that we already have.
Well, and like, let's just talk about this for a second because just this morning I received a text from Doctors Without Borders. I'd made a gift a couple weeks ago, and they just sent me a text to say, here's a link to show you how we used your money. I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
well played. I expect that they're probably going to send me another appeal by the end of the year, but because they've warmed me up, I think I might
Yep.
be open to that.
Okay. I'm so glad you said this because this is one of the things on my list is text messages.
Yes, tell me
Perfect.
more.
Okay, so I don't know about you. I'm not an like a zero inbox girly or whatever that thing's called. I currently have 2,884 unread emails
Oh
on
my God,
my
Jess, you say
phone.
that and it's like creating like anxiety for me, but please continue.
But I only have 6 unread text messages. Only 6. And so I think text messages are a very, very, very powerful tool to kind of break up the noise on this like digital like influx of messages that we have. People read their text messages. And in fact, I just want to read it for you. I have a boonie. I call people in my community my boonies. And one of them, her name is Jo Ellis. She runs this amazing organization called Make Do based in Arkansas. And she was just riffing with me on Giving Tuesday. And she sent me her text message she sent to her donors. And it was super simple. Like, she specifically said what $22 does for her organization with the link to make it easy peasy, which I thought was just so smart. And she told me, let's see, that she had like what was the rate? I want to say she had like an insane, like 38% conversion rate or something on these text messages because it's like click done, it's just like right there, you're doing it. And I was thinking like, man, everyone should do text messages. I will say you need to do them one by one. okay, and I say need. There are tools out there in the world. I know some of our tech partners have like text messaging tools, but it's very, very, very easy to get marked as spam when you use one of those or you use like a Google number. I know specifically if you try and do a mass text message through a Google phone number, it will mark you as spam and won't get sent. So like Joe specifically sent those one by one by one by one. She did it to 50 people she was trying to recapture. It probably took her, I don't know, 60 to 90 minutes. I would say that that is a valuable use of 90 minutes. So I think you have to assess that, like the process or the functionality of that. Because if you're going to do it, like, let's do it well. We want it to actually get delivered. It's kind of a waste of time if you do this work and then it gets shuffled into spam or junk or whatever.
Well, and I just want to underscore this point, which I think is implied, but is worth saying, is that you definitely want to make sure that you have permission to text message people and to email people, because I find it so annoying
Oh,
when I get
yes.
a DM from someone. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I don't know who you are, and I don't know how you got my phone number. Like,
Yeah, no, there's like nothing worse.
yeah. So make sure that you have permission. So just with these 5 strategies, at what point are we also looking at our copy? Like,
Mm.
at what point are we like, well, maybe it's just a bad email?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is again, has a lot to do with what you do in that warm up phase. But since we're talking about this probably mid campaign, I would say that single story text based emails with one call to action are going to be your best performing pieces of communication. So that is not a lot of graphics. That is not like a bunch of funky text. It's something that is easy to read, it's easy to navigate. There's not a lot of choice. You're not like donate to this, volunteer for that, RSVP to this event over here and like do all these things. Like no, 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 no. Like it's fundraising season. So make your links to your fundraising page, period. As far as the copy goes, I mean, some just quick suggestions are write like you talk. So you want to be informal. You want to be conversational and casual. You want people to feel like you are really on the other side of that computer screen. And so if it's easier for you to like voice memo yourself and then transcribe it and like do some quick edits so that it goes on a page, well, like by all means do that. And people really do like stories, so I'll oftentimes start my email with a question. That's usually a really good hook. Or something a little controversial or something a little just spicy. And then I kind of get into it. I will say like some of the most powerful words in copywriting are because of you. Because is a really powerful copywriting word and you is a really powerful copywriting tool. And if you smush them all together, because of you makes for a great subject line, intro to a story, all the things. The last thing I'll say about copy is don't be afraid to put in a PS sentence. They're often the most read line of anything. So if you just want to reiterate like what your call to action is in the email, go ahead and do that. Yeah. Talk about use yours, first names versus us, we, ours.
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
do a lot of that.
and if I can add something, I think
Please.
there's a very strong tendency to put everything in the kitchen sink in one email. Please don't do that.
Mm,
And I find this happens when you're writing by committee and you got the
mm.
ED and the DOD and the board and everyone has to squeeze something in. It's like, please, everyone, one email, one thing.
Yeah. One. The power of one is real. One story, one call to action. Not lying.
Yeah. Okay. So you keep referencing this template because I'm listening to you and I'm like, Jess, this sounds awesome. I am not a copywriter. I literally do not have space in my brain in the next 3 weeks to do all of the things. How can you help us?
Yeah, so you were not alone. You were like every nonprofit fundraiser on planet Earth. And I've been writing templates for folks for years. They are some of my most popular freebies and opt-ins. And then I launched a template shop. And then I thought, people really need something all the time. And so I created this fundraising template shop membership. So for $11 a month or $132 a year, which is less than $3 a template, you get a Monday drop. So today's Monday when we're recording this, people got that We Miss You email template with instructions, with a Loom video so that they can go off and implement it in the next 7 to 10 days. But they range. So sometimes they're cultivation emails, sometimes they're donor survey emails, sometimes they're appeal emails, sometimes they're text message templates, sometimes they are social caption templates, sometimes they are gratitude or Valentine's Day. One of the most popular ones I did was one on Halloween. And it was a warm-up email, and it was just something really plug and play for people to execute, and people loved it. So it's a way to save you time, which is your most valuable resource, and it's at a super no-brainer price for $11 a month, and you get 4 templates a month. And it's just getting started. So I'm assessing now, like, do we make a Slack channel with it? Do we do other things? But right now it's just literally like the templates, and they're working really well.
So, and if I buy the membership, do I get access to previous templates as well, or just the ones that you
Yeah,
send?
you do.
Oh my God.
And it's
No.
cancel anytime. So yeah, I mean, in theory, you could go in there and just download all the previous ones and then say sayonara.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Which you could, don't, but you could. But yeah, I'm always like trying to assess what my community needs 2, 3, 4 weeks in advance so that they can get the job done. So it's fundraising season. So for example, the last couple of weeks, it's been about Giving Tuesday, shortest email ever, as I explained, the We Miss You one. Next week, I think I'm going to drop an email on how to ask monthly donors for a one-time gift this end of year giving season. I'm going to do an appeal strong email. You know what I'm saying? And then we'll transition into like cultivation as we look towards January.
All right, y'all. I don't know. Maybe you are an expert copywriter, but Jess is literally the best in the biz. There's no better deal. What, 130? But take the $130 that you would have used for shots at the end of the year, and instead sign up for Jess's thing, and it will save you much time, much headache, many shots. Your liver will thank you.
Yeah. I hope so. I mean, that's the feedback I've been getting so far, which is making me so pleased and happy. I love nothing more than being resourceful for different organizations and saving you all time. And even I've had people say, like, even if they didn't use the template exactly, it sparked some idea. It's pointed them in the right direction. It's just so much better than starting with a blank page,
I mean, and for $130,
There's no better deal.
There is no better deal. I mean, like, that's half a trip to Whole Foods, guys.
Seriously, especially these days. Oh my gosh.
All right. So we'll make sure to put all of that information in the show notes. But if you are listening to this and you are looking at your end, when we're publishing this, this is going to be the first full week of December 2023, you can't afford not to get this template shop. So listen to your friends, Jessica and Rhea. Do yourself a favor.
Go raise the money. I mean, if there's anything you're leaving outside of this template shop, it's like you still have so much time. There's much time, and there's way time to course correct or pivot or add, and you've got this. Like, we are cheering you on so loudly.
However, if you are listening to this December 31st, you don't actually have that much time. No. Just to light a little fire into the buns there. All right, Jess, thanks as always. This is like an annual thing. We'll do this every year. And we'll say the same thing. But thanks for all this. And folks, go raise some money. Happy end of year.
Bye.
Bye.